Hey everyone, it's Raghu,
Oh
and
wait, sorry,
it's
sorry. I just want
perfect,
to grab this.
perfect. It's this perfect moment, okay?
I was gonna
This
get a sip
is
of water, but
yeah, this is Chrissy, or more formally known, shall we say, as Crispy on as that identity that represents her in YouTube land. So welcome, Chrissy. It's great to have you.
thank you, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah. So, I didn't even mention this to you when we were talking just before, but I like to do, I do different podcasts with Next Gen, and all the way down to, I have a really precocious granddaughter who's like 14, who absolutely knows everything that's going on in our world, all the bad and all the good, all of it, though. She can sit there and have a conversation with any adult about any. I mean, she's amazing. So I do podcasts with her. Okay, where are you at now with what's going on? And she'll talk about politics and the inequities and social inequities, basically. Anyhow, so this is part of that, and so I'm happy to chat with you. But yeah, why don't you just talk about you I always ask people, what is it that in their formative years, which aren't that long ago for you, just wake up to maybe there's something else going on. And it's not just what I've been spoon fed by family, school, society, etc., friends, all of it. So yeah, maybe a little bit about your, more formal years when that kind of stuff was happening.
Yeah, I didn't grow up particularly religious, and I would say my parents were spiritual. But as I got into my adult years, I was really consumed with my career and school. I've been a beauty influencer for like 10 years on YouTube, and I was going and doing that, and then things were going well until they weren't. And yeah, in 2021, I was really stressed, like doing the influencer thing, by the way, because I felt like I
No.
had to tell people and have this very tight control over like who I was presenting myself to be. And I felt like I had to fit into what I thought people thought I was, you know?
Mm.
And yeah, but the big change for me was in 2021. There, I had a traumatic accident and a near death experience. And after this, it was like I came out of it, and if my brain was a puzzle, it was like it all got scrambled. And I felt different and I didn't know what was what. And so I started looking on YouTube at near death experience videos. And then,
Mm.
the algorithm led me to like lots of different spiritual teachers. And then one day I came across a Ram Dass video, and I had just never heard anyone present such complex ideas in such a simple, understandable way. And he was so funny and so honest. And from that point on, I started listening to the podcast with you.
Hmm.
From episode one, I listened to
Oh, really?
yeah,
This
every
is
single
just after
episode.
the event,
Yeah.
basically?
hmm
Really?
every single day. And then I would get to the point where I was moving through so many lectures that I would be like, you can only listen to one today because I don't want to finish them all, you know? And then it was really just during that time too, I started learning about all different kinds of Eastern philosophy.
Mm.
Like the first books that I read were Metahuman by Deepak Chopra, which
Mm.
was like my understanding or my introduction to what consciousness is.
Mm.
And then I was also reading autobiography of a yogi, but really Ram Dass was like, he's like home base for me. Like I always come back to his teachings, and I just can't even. Everyone in my life was so annoyed because I was like, you have to listen to this Ram Dass lecture. Like my dad would be working on his motorcycle on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm like, Dad, listen to this. But I was like, what?
Oh,
But
you
yeah,
know
Ram Dass.
what, though? I got to tell you, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're just
No, tell
reminding
me.
me of me when I was the program director of a rock and roll radio station in Montreal. I guess if you might know that if you listen to some of the podcasts.
Yes,
But
I do.
yeah, so I asked, they wanted me to promote him on doing a lecture. I didn't know who he was, and then when they said, "Oh, Richard Alpert, Tim Leary. Okay, my heroes. And then I went and I said, send me a tape, and they did of a previous lecture. And everything you just said was what I thought. Wow,
Yeah.
it's so real and authentic and honest, especially the honest. I
Yeah.
mean, that was great. For me, it was okay. So, I've done so many dark, schmucky things, hiding them. Now it's okay. I'm not the only one, which
Yeah.
is really, very comforting. And then, when I actually went to meet him, and that day, I think, and that changed my life just because of the same thing, trust.
Mhm.
I trusted him. And that trust led me to Neem Karoli Baba when he went back to India that time. But in the meantime, before that happened, there was about 8 months, and I was doing this thing at the station. All I did was play Ram Dass and bug the shit out of everybody else I knew, just like you.
Yeah. And then I would get, like, I'm always contextualizing things and I call them Ram Dassisms. But I was laying my trip on everyone because it was like transforming my life. And I had the expectation that like it was going to do the same for everybody. But now I see that, everyone has a different path and that I can
Hmm.
just be love. I don't have to lay my trip on anyone.
Yeah,
But
right.
it's like he says, like Maharaji is the jewel in his heart. And I feel like in this community and his teachings and his stories, it's the jewel in my heart too.
Mm.
So it's just completely transformed my life.
Yeah, everybody out there listening to this is like Ram Dass testimonial hour. But the reality is, yeah, obviously, this is Ram Dass's Be Here Now podcast network. So there probably is some association there, right? And the great thing is, I was just talking about this over the last few days. On this past Sunday, actually, there's a meditation center called Spirit Rock. Are you familiar with the Jack Cornfield?
Yeah, I love Jack Cornfield.
Okay, good. So Jack it was a honoring of Ram Dass as a benefit for Spirit Rock and Love Serve Remember, and for Hanuman Maui, where Ram Dass lived, which is still available for people to go and hang out in. And so on this call, it was a day-long Zoom, right? Jack Cornfield, Joseph Goldstein, Sharon Salzberg, Krishna Das, and me, and I was thinking, wow, that these people who really Ram Dass befriended, long, long time ago, and helped them in terms of their teaching career. And I'm thinking, wow, these are all so, I mean, trusted. You hear them speak. This is a trust level that immediately, with all of them, that immediately happens. And
Yeah.
I was just, yeah, I'm just thinking about, what you're speaking to is that trust level. And when you say, I always come back, well, there's something, really connecting inside yourself where
Hmm.
honestly it comes from Neem Karoli Baba. Ultimately, that's what happened to Ram Dass, Krishnadas, myself, everybody. Who that's what that jewel was. That's a good way to put it. Actually, you know what? Yeah, jewel was an input into everyone's hearts. But I told this the other day. I was with Ram Dass in the summer before he died, and we were just hanging out, and I thought I was going to jive him with this question, which was, Maharaj, he told you not to talk about him when you came back to America that first time. Why did you do it? Knowing full well the reality of what it is. And he said, which is where you, I think, got this. I was given a jewel. How could I not share it? And
Yeah.
that's the sort of credo for everything that we do, and continuing to put out whatever the teachings and create new ones around all of these different subjects that are important to people. So, yeah.
Yeah, I've been a big supporter. That was the cool thing about discovering Ram Dass is, like you said, discovering other teachers. So yeah, I've been ever since I discovered Ram Dass. I also listened to Mindrolling. I listened to Krishna Das Kirtan. I love Sharon Salzberg. I love Jack Cornfield. So I'm just a big supporter. Oh, and I went to the Wisdom LA event of the
You
50th
did?
anniversary. Yes,
Oh,
I
you're
did.
kidding. And
Uh-huh.
you didn't introduce yourself or anything.
I was just like I was all shy in the corner.
Oh,
I
good.
was just happy to be there. And I got a
Yeah.
Ram Dass
All
t-shirt.
right.
It's my
This
favorite
is this
t-shirt.
is the young woman who's shy in the corner who has uh, like 6-7 million people looking at her on YouTube, and then I saw this one thing. I mean, this is like in the middle of nothing. We're just I noticed this one video attracted 78 million views, and it's called "Iconic Skull Tutorial." Is that right?
No.
No. Okay.
So my total channel views are 78 million.
Oh,
But
okay.
I think that one video has
Oh, it
like
had
6
6 or 7 million.
something
Uh
like
huh.
that. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot too. What the hell is? I just have to know. I mean, so we haven't really talked about it, but as her identity as Crispy is helps people, women with makeup, maybe some men too, I guess. And yeah, so that's her. It's still a job, right? I mean, you still do this. So
Mhm.
it's amazing. So okay, what's iconic skull tutorial?
It's a Halloween tutorial and it's just a skull painted on your face, but it's like a bandana across your lower face.
Wow, and that was 6-7 million people, whatever it was.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to get my one of my other granddaughters. Okay, I'll have to find that video and send it to them. Okay, that sounds right on. Oh boy. So, can you the NDE, the near death experience?
Mhm.
Can you give us what actually happened? More of a blow by blow.
Yeah, so the I felt when this first happened, it was really jarring, obviously, for me. It was the scariest thing I've ever been through. But basically, it was like I was in the hospital and I was looking down at myself. And it's hard to explain these experiences, but it was like I had this fear of like, oh my gosh, like this is so bad. And then this release of, I don't know, just like this knowing, like, oh, it's going to be okay. And it was like each level of fear as I got higher and higher away from my body was an
Hmm.
even deeper understanding that like everything was going to be okay. And then finally, like the last, you know, I guess part of this was like, it's going to be okay because you're not going to go back to your body or to your life at all. And it was like totally okay.
You
It
were
was,
okay with that.
yeah, it was weird. It was weird. I was like, it was just this like release of like, oh, okay, no
Really?
worries.
Wow. And
And then I woke up and then it was not okay because I was freaked out.
oh, and then it was not okay. That's
Yeah.
something.
And then I've been working as an influencer for 10 years. And there were definitely some aspects of influencer culture and just like LA, like, that were toxic. Like it was sort of like fame obsessed, image obsessed, materialism. And then this happened and tried to just go back to work because at that time I was really unhappy. Uh, I was I was drinking a lot. I was the heaviest I'd ever been. I was like 250 pounds. And when I came out of this, I thought the response was to just, get thin and make more money and be more successful. Like that was the answer. And then this happened. And all of a sudden, things didn't feel right. And I feel like I was having panic attacks. I was so just out of whack. And I look back on it, and that was my body's way of communicating with me that something needed to change. So then finally, I stopped. I started, finding or researching spirituality. What is this whole life thing about? What does it mean to be human?
Mm.
And I was just called to it so much that I decided I needed to take a break from social media. So I was in the middle of negotiating a contract with a new management agency. I told them I walked away from that contract and I deleted all my social media for a year and I went on this spiritual journey.
What were you actively doing things that people do sort of in retreat in terms of practice? Did you get into practice?
Yeah. So I actually, it was very, I would describe myself as, again, borrowing Ram Dass's language, like I'm such a tourist. Like I love to explore all different practices, but I take everything into my heart and, see what works for me. So honestly, the most effective practices for me was like, honestly, reading, listening to lectures, and then just being present with friends. But I did also learn to meditate. I had a yoga therapist
What's
who's
that? Wait a minute, I never heard of that.
and then so he taught me a meditation routine and yeah, but basically my practice was first just meditation and studying, but then also I love bhakti yoga and karma yoga, converting your actions into your service. And so that's obviously a practice for me, but it's something that it's my intention.
Mm, so
and
great.
and
Go
then
ahead.
too, it was like I didn't know how to come back to social media or if I should, but then I realized that I'm so lucky to be able to speak with my audience because we have really close connections. We talk about real things. And I thought, why can't you make this your service too? And you don't have to be a teacher. You're not Ram Dass, but you can just be present with people. And that is a service. So that's why I decided to come back. And it's been the most enjoyable time for me on social media since coming back now with this new perspective.
Mm. Do you ever have people on your show that is from spiritual world, say,
No, I haven't, but I
or any
love,
world, not spiritual world? It's all spiritual, but yeah,
yeah.
you know what I mean. Just someone you
I
talk,
ha-
just like this,
No,
like
I haven't yet. I only have these conversations in my personal life. So actually, just recently, I talked with one of my friends on her podcast about spirituality. It's my most favorite thing to talk about. So not yet, but I feel like I'm being pushed in that direction.
mm. I think it's especially good, and I think you already do this, where people actually ask you, uh, questions about one thing or another. Correct? You do that.
So my channel so far has been really just me, like tutorials direct to camera.
Oh,
So there's not a lot of dialogue on my channel aside from when I used to do vlogs. So, but it is something I want to do because I feel like it just makes it more interesting, the back and forth.
mm. It's also more interesting to share with people potentially things that could really, oh, wait a minute, I'm not just those thoughts I'm having. I'm not just the story I'm telling myself. All of that. The Do you know who Duncan Trussell is?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, you would because you've been listening to Mindrolling. And
Mm-hmm.
so Duncan and I did an audiobook from the movie of me to the movie of we, which I think you do understand that. And so we just laid ourselves out in terms of all the crazy neurotic shit we both have and the habitual tendencies and how we were brought up, and to give people an idea. Yeah, no, we all have that story, and now how do we transform that me little me guy gal into, wait, there's a world of interconnectivity, and there is a we. And of course, this is at the core of what we're in right in this moment, right now, with the election and all that. And so, anyhow, we put this thing out, and I am just listening to you. Yeah, you could be doing this is like a conversation offline, but
Yeah.
you could be doing this, Chrissy. Absolutely. It'd be so great for people to get involved in these kinds of conversations.
I was really afraid to talk about these things based on the reaction from people in my personal life, because some people don't want to hear it, stresses them out, and I get that. But I noticed with each conversation online, I'm so surprised at how open people are to have these conversations about things that matter.
Yeah. Well, the people that aren't so happy, no, bye bye. Oh,
Yeah,
that's a
I think,
terrible thing to say. I'm terrible and I'm going to go to hell. But
well,
the reality is, you know what? When I came back from India with all of this in mind, that was the only thing I wanted to talk about. I didn't
same.
want to relate with anybody else about. It's just like, actually one of our mentors in India who wrote the greatest book about Neem Karoli Baba was named Dada Mukherjee, Sudhir Mukherjee, and it's called By His Grace. And he used to say, I can't stand being in worldly discussion. And
Mm,
all he would do, he was just with Maharaji. So we would go there, and it was great for us because we were coming from nothing but material and worldly stuff, and we come to India sort of as a retreat at that time too. So,
yeah,
yeah. But when I came back, all of the same thing was going on, and it naturally just fell away because, after a while, you're not spending too much time with people that you were friendly with in the past. You just are moved on, and they get that, and it's not as satisfying for them to hang out. So, those things happen naturally.
I think too with having these conversations online is that for so long I wanted to be liked by my audience and I wanted to be understood.
Oh,
So I
yeah.
just
I
yeah, and
forgot
then I
about that.
unfortunately, I still deal with it, but I allow myself to be human. I look at it, I'm like, that's just another attachment. And underneath that, there's a fear that like if someone doesn't like me, what does it say about me? And so I had to really look at that and be like, that doesn't mean anything because you're not actually your personality or any of your roles, you
Yeah.
exist behind that. So it's okay. Just take it one step at a time.
Yeah. And it'd be great for people to hear this, especially from your own experience. It would be fabulous. And of course, yeah, there's always that fine line between our attachment. If we're doing something, you know, we expect results because we're Americans. We're from the West. I mean that like it happens everywhere, but we have grand expectations on one side, and on the other, we are real, as Ram Dass would call it, souls. And though that soul is behind all of that other stuff, as you just said, and how do we balance that is a big trick in life.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how he says it's the soul's curriculum. So whenever, because you say, you have the same honest approach, like you'll say that all the time that stuff comes up. So it is comforting knowing that you can allow yourself to be human. And when this stuff comes up, it's actually for, your soul. It's serving you and working out your journey in this life.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I quote Jack Cornfield a lot, this one particular thing. Like he'll be giving a talk. Oh, he gives a great talk, actually. You should come to the retreat. I forgot about that. We'll talk about that after, I guess. But yeah, Jack is going to be there with Krishnadas and so on that we have in Maui. Yeah, I guess I should say, yeah, you can still, maybe you can't get into the actual place, everybody out there, but you can get a place right next to it. There's a bunch of other hotels. Ours is held at one. We've been doing it there forever. Well, long ever, anyhow. And you still can do that, and then come and you hang out, in the pavilion where all of the action goes on in the restaurant. So it's totally convenient. You can do it. So if you're interested, go to ramdas.org and go in the menu and you'll see events and just click on there. So yeah, because it's close to being not available at all, but it still is. That's my little commercial. But yeah, I was more thinking about you. But yeah, Jack will talk about. Do you ever look at yourself, in terms of all the human behavior, you know, all of the, your eyes and what you see and what you hear and how you react to it. And then what about eating? He's stuffing all of this vegetation and other, sometimes meat, into your mouth, and then he'll go on, he'll talk about sex and then he'll say, it's so because at every point in all of these things, our reactions really increase the karma of, and that's what you got to unlearn. One of the
Mm,
things. And he said, but we're human. It's okay. And that's a great mantra, to not take
yeah.
yourself so seriously about all of the bullshit that you go through and the way I mean, in some cases, or not in some, I would say almost all cases, the way people, how you talk to yourself about, you made a mistake, you did something wrong, the way you castigate yourself. If you did that to a friend, you'd never
Mm,
talk to that person again. Isn't that nuts?
yeah. That is something I need to be better about, and it's so true. I would never talk to my friends that way
Yeah,
when I'm all
exactly.
mad at myself.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll talk about social media a little bit more. I mean, that's highly in our consciousness in all ways, in terms of what's going on with young people, really young people, in terms of what's going on with misinformation and so on. There's a lot of negatives, and yeah, what's your experience being right in the middle of it?
When I first had this whole change in perspective, I had like fully demonized social media, and in particularly my community, because it started out as just makeup tutorials. You go on, you film a tutorial, and then you go back and live your life. But as technology and these platforms evolved, it became like live sharing. So, and you were sort of like not required, but in order to keep your audience engaged, you were basically posting on your stories or Snapchat your entire day in addition to all your content. It no longer was just tutorials. It was like vlogging. So you're showing your whole life. They know your family, they know your dogs, they know everything you're dealing with. And honestly, like that, I feel like I conformed to that because I thought this is what I need to do to be successful. But I never really felt comfortable with it, to be honest. Not because I think my life is like sacred and great. Honestly, it was like the opposite. I was like, my life is kind of boring. And like, I'm like, that's like the worst thing for an influencer to admit, But I'm like, there's not a lot to see here. Like, my life is super introspective. Like, there's a lot happening in here, but on the outside,
Mm,
I was doing the influencer thing, traveling, going to events and stuff, but I just didn't feel comfortable sort of acting as like a reality star in certain ways, because
yeah.
it just felt performative and it robbed me of so many experiences because I always was gauging like, is this shareable? How is the audience going to like this? Instead of just
Oh
living
boy.
it.
Yeah.
And I noticed when I first stopped posting, everyone thought something was wrong. And I was really looking at that as like there's an expectation that if something good is going on in your life, that you're going to be posting about it on social media. The assumption was is if you're not sharing, then things must be bad. And I just felt like not everything needs to be exploited for content. And I needed to be more present in my life. And we see how screen time is so harmful for our brains, especially for young kids. And so
Mm,
that's why I was like, I don't want to contribute to this anymore. But
mm,
like you said, it's all about perspective. So I had to go all the way around and see that there is so much bad, but it can also be such a powerful tool. And it's the same place where I found Ram Dass and where I connect with my audience about real issues. So I thought, I should go back and use this for good.
mm. Wow. Do people know, what's happened to do the following that you have? Do they know, have any idea of, I mean, it's in, it's, you can Google it all up and all that, but do they have any idea of this kind of transformation?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because after I didn't post for a year, and then I came back and I did a video telling honestly everything that I'm saying
really.
here. Yeah. And that was the most like, honestly, like brave thing for, in my opinion, that I've ever done. And I was so scared. And then again, like I said, I was so surprised at how open people were because I was being really honest, you know? So yeah, people know and they still accept me,
Hmm.
surprisingly.
But I guess I keep thinking, and so there is that, I guess, a little bit of a high wire act in terms of being able to share that. But then there's what people want. They want really the information that you have around beauty care, correct? And someone might say, "Hey, I don't give a shit about that. Just tell me how to, put my, mascara on properly."
Hmm.
Is that going on for
uh,
you?
yeah, somewhat. And I've been told, because I've been talking about this
And then
shift.
you have management and everything going, and people that are that way probably
Yeah,
also in your face.
I've been told, by people trying to like mentor me through this transition, back into social media, is that like you're going to lose some of your audience, but the people that you gain are going to join you for a different reason, and that's okay too. And
Oh,
yeah, I
really?
don't want yeah, and I do feel like that, like it's either like the people who've been following me for so long, like now we have this new connection we didn't know that was there, and I'm
Mm,
encountering new people who are interested in having, I don't know, just deeper conversations or more
mm-hmm,
than just superficial stuff. But
mm,
I will say I have been, it hasn't just been like strictly informational. I have shared a lot of my like personal struggles with my audience too. So they've seen me like go through breakups, they've seen me struggle with my weight. I've spoken to them about eating disorders and addiction.
mm,
So
mm.
it hasn't been just about makeup. Like makeup for me was always a vehicle to connect with my audience, and now I'm able to do it in a deeper way.
So you are doing it then. You are,
Hmm.
yeah. Wow. When did you start again? When did you go back to it?
So I first came back in 2022,
Uh huh.
but then I ended up I ended up going into rehab in the end of 2022
Mm.
and getting sober. So then I took some time off for that. So now in December I'll be 2 years sober, and
Oh,
so it's
congrats.
been kind of like, I'm still just,
Increments.
yeah.
Mm. Well, I just think you. Do you know that we have a person, Nikki Walton is her name, on the network, and how it's very similar to you, and hers was hair, and she's an African American woman, and so dealing with hair in a specific way, and she got a very large audience. You know what she does now? I don't know if she
Mhm.
does any of that anymore. She does meditation on the beach in Florida.
Oh
That.
wow.
Yeah, you should tune in, Nikki. She's going to start up a whole new series actually
Oh, that's
with us.
awesome.
Yeah, no, and she got a book coming out. It's all about spirituality, nothing
Oh
about
wow.
hair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Nikki
follow
Walton.
her.
Yeah, Nikki Walton. Yeah, she's great. Yeah, yeah. This is such an important thing, especially you being able to speak to this generation. So I really do hope it blossoms in that way, which it seems to be. And let's see. You know what? I saw something that you said or you talked about, and it was connecting through storytelling. Do you remember talking about that a little?
Probably. Like somewhere.
So I have somebody that I've actually was supposed to do a podcast with him yesterday, but it didn't. We had to reschedule. His name is Tyson Yunkaporta. He is from Australia, an indigenous person from Australia. He wrote another book, Sand Talk, which is amazing too. I mean, he really represents this tradition in a way that really defeats all the new age bullshit that we particularly, especially my generation coming back, from the late 60s, early 70s, growing up. Yeah, he's amazing. So I found this thing. I thought, I want to see what you think about it. So this book is called Right Story, Wrong Story: How to Have Fearless Conversations in Hell. He's that kind of person. He don't take any prisoners. I mean, it's just amazing guy. So I haven't even had him parse this to me, but we're going to do it first. Right story is not about objective truth, but the metaphors and relations and narratives of connected communities living in complex contexts of knowledge and economy, aligned with the patterns of land and creation. That's getting deep. Right story never comes from individuals. That's an amazing thing right there. Right
Yeah.
story never comes from individuals, but from groups living in right relation with each other and with the land. I mean, there's nothing that happens that doesn't refer to the land and nature, everything. And every one of these traditions, and I met a lot of people in this area. Wrong story, wrong way. This means unilateral or unbalanced ritual, word, and thought. In other words, pretty shitty thinkers. They're all around us. Wrong thinking is... How about this, right? It's not about objective truth, but relations and narratives of interconnected communities. Is that so beautiful?
Yeah, that is. I think of there's a Terrence McKenna quote that I just was like my answer to myself a lot of the times. Like, reality is a function of perception, and I feel
Exactly.
like, yeah. So he's or that's my understanding. What he was explaining is that you can have right stories that are in harmony with the universe. You can have wrong stories based on subjective truth, or actually, yeah,
And separateness. People living
definitely,
in that belief,
yeah,
which we have today, including, Rob Dass, he put people in political power over the decades, on his altar. And he would say, I am not, what I'm doing is I am communing with the soul and having, sending love to the suffering of the incarnation, all the way to Mr. Trump. He had him
yeah,
on his altar as well. And I said, I can't do that for some reason. I'm still lost in separation, feeling like this is a separate thing. It has nothing to do with me.
yeah.
You know, it's very tough.
I actually just had an argument or not an argument, a debate this morning on this topic.
Oh, really?
And
With?
yeah,
Do you mean
someone I'm
just
close
friends?
to,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
friend. And, he was talking about a lot that's going on today. And I said, it's okay to be angry when you're learning about the realities that are going on. I said, but, eventually I hope that you land at compassion, because to harm another person is to harm oneself. And he's like, that is bullshit. And then I was like, you
Yeah,
gotta stop. I was like, just listen, just be supportive. I was like, stop trying to lecture. But that is my, like, you guys always say, it's my practice. I'm not perfect at it, but that's my intention, because it serves me, because then I'm a better person to everyone.
yeah,
But it's not
absolutely.
always easy.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel bad though, because Maharaji, one day in Kenchi, where we met him in the Himalaya, Ram Dass saw him screaming at some guy and basically throwing him out because he was doing bad shit. He was stealing the potatoes and selling them elsewhere, higher price. Some crazy thing. How could you do that? And especially with somebody who absolutely knows everything all the time. It's just not smart. Anyhow, Ram Dass, though, got really upset. He said, you said not to get angry. And look, he just hauled off on this guy. I mean, he didn't say it quite like that, but and you know what Neem Karoli Baba said? You can be angry, but you just cannot throw anyone out of your heart.
Yes. Yes, I love that.
Isn't that a good one?
Yeah.
Very tough, though. I haven't managed myself yet. I'm working on it. He's
Well,
good to work with, by the way.
yeah.
You know, our former president. Yeah. Good
Sometimes
work.
I think about that too, how Ram Dass would say, you know, Maharaji would tell him, can't you see it's all perfect?
Yeah.
And how Ram Dass said that he would struggle with that. And I think about that all the time because, like he said, it would be like a cold rationalization to say that like it's all perfect, and that the fact that we don't understand it is because we're human, because we have more work to do, and it's okay to not agree and to, like you said, feel angry with the injustices that are going on.
Yeah. Oh, we used to, no, I would say we really have to characterize it's all perfect, don't we, Ram Dass? And he would say, yeah, that's coming from a being that's not living in duality anymore, in a body, Neem
Yeah.
Karoli Baba. We are not that. And you just said it perfectly, we could not understand that rationally in any way whatsoever. And it can be, and for people to adopt that are still in this duality, that's just spiritual bypass bullshit. It's all
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, you fell over and hit your head. Well, it's karma. This is endemic, unfortunately, in our culture as well. But these are the things that we look towards, as you said. We have to work on ourselves, and these are the ways that we do it. Having some
Mhm.
understanding, anyhow. And I think I thought you talked also about gratitude. Talk about gratitude. What it
Yeah.
means in your life.
Um, I think sort of it had become a sort of like popular topic in pop psychology recently,
Yeah, yeah. Two
gratitude.
two pop.
Yes. And so when I was struggling with myself and my life and, my identification was just solely with my ego, I would actually, my practice of gratitude was actually a practice in attachment because I thought, if I write these things down, I say I'm grateful, it's going to change my life because I don't actually appreciate what I have. And when I went through this whole change, I just had a moment of surrender and total gratitude. And it started with music. And I know you're going to appreciate this is that it was so weird. It was like you would die of cringe if you saw me that day. Like I was like, I was hearing music for the first time. I was like so moved by it.
Hmm.
And, these are songs I've been listening to years. I was like, what happened? How is this happening? I was like, you've been taking music for granted because you can listen to any song you want, anytime, right here on your phone. And I thought about growing up as a kid. I'm like, you'd have the CD, you had to wait to hear it on the radio. And then I just was like thinking back to like how it's so readily available to us that we take it for granted. And then that became a metaphor for literally everything in my life, like all the little things that I was taking for granted. And I wasn't faking it this time. Like I actually
Right, right.
was grateful.
Oh, that's it. Wonderful. But yeah, and everything is grist for the mill. That's that other great book Ram Dass put together. It's just an opportunity to transform. And when you see it
Yeah.
that way, you're not pushing everything off, the way that we prefer to do, and not encounter in a way that's non-judgmental to yourself or to others and so on. Yeah.
I think the difference, this has been such like a huge difference that Daws's teachings have given me is that I wasn't, I was afraid to be honest with myself because I didn't have compassion. I judged myself. So there was a lot of
Mm.
deception in the way I treated myself, the way I worked with myself. I was afraid to admit what was really wrong. You know, but with Ram Dass, that he showed me it's okay to be totally honest. And like he said, like when you don't have aversions to things, they don't cling to you as much. And so I think there was like deception in my gratitude practice before all this because I wasn't grateful. I was like, I want to make more money. I want to be thin, you know? It was
Yeah, yeah.
stupid.
That's so great. Oh God. By the way, speaking about Ram Dass, Ram Dass was not, whatever, is not a guru.
I
Okay.
know this. Yeah.
So that Ram Dass, the beauty of him, he was told to love everybody and tell the truth. And he said, I can't do that. I don't love everybody.
Yeah.
By his days in Maui, and before he died, he got to a place where I saw it. He was absolutely, what's love everybody? I mean, Simone Weil, the great French writer, said the most generous thing that you can do in life is to give your full attention to somebody, right? And Ram Dass, that to me is real love, because you're not thinking about me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what he did with me just created a space where I could completely relax and feel at home and feel trust and maybe since my mother I hadn't experienced anything like that
Mm-hmm.
prior, and that generosity is in everybody. It really is. And that's his main thing. But so he worked through decades and decades, to get there. And of course, that stroke was extraordinary, and he almost died. He was half paralyzed. He lost his gift of gab. He was the greatest. He was Lenny Bruce on spiritual steroids. If you know who Lenny Bruce is,
I don't, but
you got
I
Lenny
assume he's a
Bruce.
comedian.
He's a comedian that, like 50s and 60s, unfortunately, he was a junkie.
Yeah.
But he was really honest, and he'd go up there and talk about what's real in terms of this polarized society from back then. And he used foul language. So back then they actually arrested him. He was put in jail numbers
Oh
of time
wow.
for using swear words in his act. I mean,
Oh
and
wow.
but he was phenomenal, like artist, phenomenal. So we used to say, yeah, Ram Dass is a spiritual Lenny Bruce.
Yeah,
Um,
this topic has been coming up for me a lot lately. And I was actually thinking about that with just with starting these conversations more, is that you don't have to be a guru in order to make an impact on someone's life, because with my story, everything I've been through, like getting sober, all of this, like the thing that really moves me, the only thing that will get me emotional about it is when I think about the way that people have saved me in my life. And they
mm,
weren't doing some wise teaching. They were literally just showing up and being themselves.
mm,
And I think that we can't undervalue the potential that we have to make a positive impact on people's lives by just showing up, just being there, not
yeah.
wanting anything from anybody, you know?
Yeah, of course, to get there is a journey in itself. There
Yeah.
had having a perspective and a purpose. Really, what's one's purpose? One's purpose is to get where you just said. Get into that state, so you can be of some use to people around you. That there's, and that takes talk about relationship, for instance. As long as we are in transactional business with our
Mm.
partner or whoever it may be. But speaking of a partner, you're screwed. It ain't
Mhm.
going to happen. It's just not. One fun story is we were all in India and we were hooking up with each other, right, around Maharaji and stuff, right? So one particular couple, and they were having some trouble, and they came to actually the same mentor of ours, Dada, which means honored uncle in Allahabad. And Krishnadas told me this story. Do you know who Krishnadas is, by the way?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
listened
yeah.
to
Oh,
his
right. Yeah, you're
kirtan.
listening to it. Yeah, yeah. Sorry. He told me the story. So Dada said to him, so this person, who will be unnamed, came to visit me, and he's crying because he had a fight with his girlfriend. And Dada looks at Krishna and says, "Can you believe this? He's there with Neem Karoli Baba, right? And he's crying over this relationship that went awry with his girlfriend. That's business. That's
Mm,
just business." And you go with Maharaji, not business, because it's unconditional, right? And of course, he was just a kid, so But that reality that we all expect in relationship, goes to almost everything we do.
mhm.
If it's a business, it's going to be entangled in attachment and, you know, pain, suffering,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was one of the big shifts for me too was um, one of my favorite lectures is The Risk of Being Human.
Hmm.
And it was a Q&A. And it's funny because I always thought, I know all the stories and I never get sick of them. So when a Q&A would come up, sometimes I'd be like, oh, it's a Q&A. But it was interesting to see. He would work through things and he would come to like answers that like we hadn't heard before. But someone asked Ram Dass, how do we love ourselves more?
Yeah.
And he went into a dialogue about, the way we view love is typically conditional love, conditional romantic love. And that, real love is being with what is, it's unconditional love. So then he was like, he ended it by being like, I would like to reframe the question to you to not, how do we love ourselves more? How do we accept ourselves more?
Hmm.
And that's just that was just mind blowing to me. And
Hmm. Hmm.
so, yeah, now I'm like, what is even romantic love? Is that, I don't
Well,
get
you know
it.
what? He used to marry people, and all of that was known. There was an attraction, there's a chemical thing that's
Yeah.
humans, and so on. But he used to say, look, you just think of it as a triangle. So there's
Mm-hmm.
three, right? Three corners. One is you, one is your partner, and one is the divine, whatever you want to call that thing, the unknown thing. And as long as you have that in mind to join in that way, and that everything that happens between you and your partner is grist for the mill, as we
Yeah.
just said in that book, So, yeah,
Wouldn't he
absolutely.
say too, like, relationships are exquisite dharma? Or no, not dharma. Yoga?
Huh? Yeah, yoga,
Karma.
karma yoga. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, back to we were talking about Ram Dass is not a guru, but he's
Yeah.
a good. He has pointed and reflected a perspective that is very advantageous for many people, and you can trust him. So that we would say, but there's many as far as the everybody has. I can't even use the words that they're used so bandied about gurus and all that stuff, but there is a something that's an emanation of the something of the divine, sacred,
Mhm.
that everyone carries with them, and that one of the objects of moving through life, once you have that in mind and that purpose, is to absolutely connect in that way. God, Guru, Self are one. This great, great saint Ramana Maharshi said. And that's got to be there at the same. It doesn't got to be. There's no got to be, but that would be wonderful if it was there at the same time. And yeah, so this, in other words, this is not proselytizing about Ram Dass. Okay, this is not what this is about. For me, it's just like a wonder to hear Chrissy tell her story. It's so great. I loved hanging with you.
Well, this is such a huge moment for me too, because like you were out, your voice was in my kitchen every morning, and it was such, uh, I don't know, it was a vulnerable time in my life. And I
Mm,
felt like I had, you know, I just felt so lucky that you made that podcast and that you would do your intros and you would explain like you give backstories sometimes, or like I love the story about your dad coming to India and meeting Neem Karoli Baba. So this for me is like a really huge moment. I can't even tell you because
Oh, that's so great.
you've been a big part of my journey as well.
I want to make one recommendation to us all and all of our friends, yours, mine, and audience, and whatever. So we have this very, we are all in a very intense moment here before the couple of weeks before the election. And there's a lot of uncertainty and anxiety, and not on one side or the other, with everybody, everybody. And so we put together a 10-day course called Centered in the Storm, Finding Your Inner Refuge. And it's Ram Dass and our host of incredible family of teachers. It must be like 15, 20 teachers, So every day you join this, and every day you get an email with some content that addresses a particular, each day has a different theme, and it's all about how do we move from from that me to the we. Me to wee wee. I should have named that audiobook I did with me to wee wee. So anyhow, I do recommend. I think it's very helpful. So here's an example of how helpful it is. Our education director at Love Serve Remember Foundation, name is Jackie. She thought of this name, Centered in the Storm. Guess where she was 2 weeks ago? Asheville,
Oh,
North Carolina. Okay? Everything got wiped. I mean, some places, really, there's nothing left, half the town gone. And there was parts of Asheville that were completely submerged and destroyed. And so there she was. No water, no internet, no electricity. And let me tell you, she just got this turned on. The water just got turned on and the power in the last few days. Okay?
oh wow.
So it's been quite something. So she's sitting there thinking to herself, gee, how did I get around calling Centered in the Storm and I'm in it? And she said one of the things that really helped was this course, because she was so steeped in it because she had helped develop it. And so that, in other words, the teachings do, not these in particular, these are great teachings, but teachings are teachings when they come from authentic, substantial source. And everyone, we all out there have to use our intuition. So a little bit of trust grows into an intuition. We know we're doing the right thing. We know we're, not getting fooled by many of the spiritual hawkers that are around this world,
Oh yeah.
But anyhow, so teachings are teachings, and they do serve a purpose. Day to day they serve a purpose, so we can be kinder and more compassionate. But when you have these kind of traumas, boy, it helps.
Yeah. I love about Ram Dass too. He's like, you take everything into your intuitive heart. It's like, if you don't trust something, then leave it. Like, even if it's something I say, leave it. And yeah, it does teach you to listen to your own heart. And I've always just been, I don't know, I'm not into like, I don't know, I take everything in and then see, I'm like, how do I feel about this?
Yeah, that's great. Wonderful. Thank you for being here, Chrissy. It's
Thank
been
you so much
great,
for having
great.
me.
Yeah, really great. And we'll figure out some other way to spend a little more time together and all that. And when you go to BeHereNowNetwork.com/mindrolling, there'll be show notes and links to what Chrissy does as Chrisspy. Is there anything
Yes.
we should be tell? You were about to say something that we should maybe give people
Yeah.
more information? No.
People can find me on, well, there'll be links, but yeah, my YouTube channel, Instagram, TikTok. I'll be there.
Yeah. So CHRISSPY, Chrisspy.
Mm.
Yeah. Where the hell did you get that name, by the way?
You know what? It's a nickname from when I was a little kid. And when I
Oh,
made
really?
my Instagram, I had no idea that millions of people would ever follow me. So
That's
became my
so
nickname,
funny.
and that's actually what everybody calls me.
Really?
Like that, yeah.
Like
Some
just
people are like,
regular people.
"Oh yeah, I'll be in a meeting with the brand," and we're like, "So Christy, da 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 da," and I'm like,
That's great.
and actually, if they were to call me Christina, people would be like, "Who?" They wouldn't know who we were talking about because it's just no.
Yeah,
Everybody just always calls me
yeah.
Christy.
Yeah, well, it's not so easy for me walking around. I had a record company. Hi, my name is Raghu. Okay, at Polygram or whatever. Yeah. Fun, fun, fun. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. And again, thanks for being here, Chrissy. And this is BeHereNowNetwork.com. Just go there and find a bunch of extraordinary podcasters. See you later.